It's time to fight. If you down to fight, then let's start the strike.
What has AI done to our world? How has it changed everything that we do? Gonna change everything we're gonna be doing on top of it. But also, how does it affect us at work? And I think that's a good discussion for today. We actually, our two guests are going to dig deep into this. Robert and Jordan. Robert is from DCK6 up in San Francisco. I say up because, I'm a Southern California guy. And then Jordan from DBK4 all the way over there in New York City. And so I think it's really important for us to hear from them. Let me first start this show off by allowing them to introduce themselves. Robert, why don't you go first?
I'm Robert from DCK6 and SF. I started as a driver for the DSP for about a year and a half, and now I work in the warehouse for about 2.5 years.
Jordan.
Yeah, my name's Jordan Saref. I'm from New York, and kind of as a semi-retirement idea, I thought it would be fun to be a delivery driver. So since June 2023, I've been working at a DBK4 in Maspeth, Queens, which is a really big delivery station. Some people say it's one of the biggest in the States. I don't know exactly what the metrics are, but it's big. We got a lot of trucks. We got a lot of volume going out of there all the time. Proud to say I was part of the big strike back in December 2024. Feels it's just a year ago, and that was a lot of fun. We made a lot of waves over there. So proud to be here talking about AI. Got a lot to talk about, Netrodyne and everything else. Oh,
yeah, we'll dig into that in a minute. I just got to, I see you wearing an Amazon uniform. Amazon doesn't claim you as a driver, though, huh?
No. We have to be associated with a DSP, right? Every driver knows. Right. You don't work for Amazon.
Right. I got an Amazon shirt. I drive an Amazon vehicle. I come out of an Amazon facility, but Amazon got nothing to do with us.
Nah.
Yeah. When I started, that's what I thought I was being hired as, working for Amazon. And after a year and a half, I figured, what am I doing? I'm not even working for a company, some LLC company, DSP. So I figured it'll be better to work for Amazon. So I went into the warehouse. Little did I know, they're both terrible.
Right. Amazon's clearly changing the industry. They think it's for the better. Workers think it's for the worst. Obviously, I've come out of the industry myself, worked in it since I was a teenager, and I can tell you Amazon's influence on this industry is not a good one. And the reality is these working conditions and wages and all the things that affect the employees in this industry working for Amazon deserve a whole lot better, that's for sure. And then we have the subject of AI. We have the subject of how AI is really introducing itself into this space and affecting you at work. It's clearly something where workers feel like in a lot of ways they're being surveilled. It obviously impacts their productivity. There's this algorithm and all these different things, and it's computer generated equation that then says you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those of us that have been in the industry a whole long time, especially in the Teamsters, we've obviously represented this industry for more than 100 years. We have a pretty good idea of what makes this industry move and shake, not an AI version of the industry. With that, Jordan, why don't you start off first? I'd like for you to talk about how does this make you feel? Like, what is AI? And I know you guys just recently went to a conference recently. Why don't you chime in on this?
Well, AI, every time I hear about it, being talked in the media, and of course, there's an investment feeding frenzy out there these days because everybody's pushing AI from the top. But as a worker, it's not terrifying, but really aggravating. As a driver, particularly aggravating is the first word for sure. Dangerous at times and unfair most of the time, inaccurate a lot of the time, and we get to observe that. As it observes us. I mean, surveillance. I don't know if I want to talk about it first, but I'll talk about it for a second. Talk about privacy issues. You got that Netrodyne camera. Every driver knows what I'm talking about. That camera up on the windshield there, whether you're in an EV or you're a rental van, they try to get those Netrodyne cameras and everything. And that's collecting data. It's collecting videos. It's collecting audio, though it says it's not. It tries to measure signs, et cetera, et cetera. Talk about privacy, though. A lot of you guys out there, you're under such a time constraint that you don't have time to stop and find a proper bathroom facility. So all of us, well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us are out there with our bottles, right? And there's a camera watching you all the time. There's a camera on you. Now, okay, I haven't gotten disciplined for that, but just the idea that that camera is on me, focused when I'm doing what I got to do to get through the day, is a really disturbing thought. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I'll stop there for the moment because I could keep going on Netrodyne in a lot of ways. Want to direct me a little bit?
We will. Robert, did you want to chime in on this and how it impacts you in the warehouse?
In the warehouse, it's surveillance every minute that you're in the warehouse. So you have cameras, you have your device, which basically, the ADAPT program and the TOT, which is their AI program for productivity, whether you're not working. So the TOT is time off task. The ADAPT program or ADAPT program that they use is maintaining the level of productivity that the AI wants you to do. The managers monitor on their computer how much you are doing. When you take your breaks, if you're a little bit late coming back from your break, you get notified by a manager, hey, you're 1 minute late, even though some warehouses, like Jordan's, it takes 8 minutes to walk from where you're working to the bathroom. So it's a 16-minute round trip. They don't have bathrooms all over these warehouses. In our warehouse, we have two, one located back by the docks and one located by the break room, we have a small warehouse, so it's not as bad. But the program AI that they use it keeps track of everything you do. The problem with that is your mind is always on that. You're working at a pace that you think is going to keep the AI happy instead of working at a pace which makes sense, where you're not being injured and you're not stressed out and you don't go home. God, did I do enough tonight to not get fired? It's a terrible feeling, and the mental and the physical that it creates in a person is terrible.
Jordan, you said these 4 words, that this is aggravating, this is dangerous, it's unfair, and it's inaccurate. I couldn't have described it better myself, being part of this industry for as long as I have. How does that make you feel, and what are the examples you can extract from what I just threw out there?
Well, inaccuracies, I've seen a ton of them. I think every driver sees them. Moving violations or infractions. I mean, I'm from the city, right? I'm from New York City, so I'm driving in heavy traffic a lot. And I'll give you one for example. I'm in Bed-Stuy area of Brooklyn. It's like just after school lets out. There's the streets are not narrow, but there's just enough for 2 lanes, and then there's 2 cars parked on either side of the street. So with a truck, I mean, you're a little bit cramped for dimension there. And as a delivery driver, you're pulled over to the side, making a delivery or two. Now you got to pull out into traffic. Now, on certain days, at certain times in cities, the traffic never stops flowing, right? It just never stops flowing. So you can't really wait for that opening. You have to do the New York City thing or the Boston thing or whatever city you're out. And you got to step on the gas kind of hard and cut your tire and get out there in traffic, right? And bing, bing, hard acceleration. Is it accurate? Yeah. Is it taken in any kind of human judgment? No. Was there any other way to accomplish getting into traffic? No, especially if you're trying to meet the time schedule. So you meet 1,000 decisions like that every day, and sometimes they're just plain inaccurate. I mean, I what you just did, Randy, went up and scratched your nose, right? I was driving around one day and I'm just on the LIE driving, minding my own business, keeping in my lane, right speed, and I'm just distracted driving. Excuse me. Excuse me. Now, it would be nice if there's a formal grievance process, but the best you can do as a driver is just go back to dispatch and say, listen, that thing shouted at me and it was wrong. And I'd like you to review it and, fight it if you can. Because if you get too many infractions, you get a punishment.
Yeah.
Now, if guys are out there getting punished for inaccurate data, that's a horrible thing.
I like the example you gave on trying to creep into traffic. You make such a great example as a driver that you literally would sit there for an hour, like if not longer, until there was a break in traffic for you to be able to creep into, right? Like the reality is those conditions are what they are. And as drivers or anybody who's really familiar with the industry, we completely recognize all the variables that kind of go on out there. And so, what's crazy is that people that aren't familiar with the industry, which are many of your coworkers and drivers and others that you work around, this is very serious stuff. And people could lose their jobs over it if they don't apply this the right way or look at it the right way, which is why it's important to have the union difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Grievance process, a formal way of making sure you just go into your dispatcher. You have no idea if the guy's going to even look into it for you or gal.
Yeah. Inaccuracies. Look, man, I learned this a long time ago in this industry that 90% of what you see is actually inaccurate in some way. And the reality is if you don't have any advocacy in that space, then you're at the whim of whoever's on the other side of that. Robert, I bring up all these examples of a warehouse operation. I came out of a warehouse operation myself, dealt with productivity standards, bargain productivity standards. Like, did any of those things I said kind of ring true or spark kind of how you feel or how you see these elements happening to you inside your operation?
100%. We just came out of Amazon, just came out of the peak. They hired tons of employees to work and trained them for 3 days. All of us that have been there for, longer than a year or whatever, our productivity is maybe 3 to 4 times what their employees, the new hires, are. It's understandable. We don't look down on that, but their AI system doesn't take that into account. So during peak time, during Prime Day, during Christmas time, the holidays, they don't change the levels in what their AI sees as productivity. What they do is they don't use it at all because the productivity, the volume of packages in a warehouse goes up, the volume shipped out is much higher, but there's much more people, but there's about 2/3 of people, they're all new hires, that aren't able to match the productivity of someone that's been there for 3 months or more. And so they just take all that data and throw it out. They don't use it or compile it.
They absolutely should use all that because that's the time that you need to use it. You need to know when there's congestion. You need to know when the high density picks are happening or the high density movements or you're having a lot of things happening in a particular area where equipment is being slowed down as a result of one another. You get all these different elements that are playing into how ultimately you're going to be held accountable in the future. And it absolutely should be accounted for and it should be balanced. In other words, how often are we running into that sort of, because what compares to peak is you get your couple prime days that happen throughout the year, right? So
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
kind of peaks up at the same time. You have some ebbs and flows that happen throughout the operation, and that is what's extremely important, is making sure that people understand there should be an advocacy to all that space. In other words, you take that out, pull it apart like an old toaster, figure out how it all works and put it back together and make sure that it's going to operate correctly. Because ultimately, you don't want to see people getting in trouble for it as a result of the equation clearly not being right. And
Yeah.
in the end, what's the end result?
It,
Possibly
it,
getting
it,
hurt.
I was going to say that the injuries that occur on the job are they wouldn't be what you would call an injury. They're soft tissue muscle injuries, stuff that you would just kind of shake off. But repetition injuries are consistent at Amazon. They disregard those type of injuries. If you say, "Oh, my hand hurts," to a manager, he's just going to say, "Okay, take some time off and think if you can come back, come back. Otherwise, take a BTO." They are not reporting probably 85 to 90% of work injuries that are brought up to a manager as a work injury, so they don't have to pay the workman's comp as the injury gets further on.
One of the things you pointed out earlier was you said that they give them 3 days of training, and I tell you that when I hear that, that drives me nuts. I immediately get kind of a chill up my spine,
Yeah.
because the reality is, me coming from this industry, I know that 3 days of training is not enough. Number one, number two, like the things that you need to learn and understand, like for those of us that came out of a warehouse environment, we took this great pride in our job, and it's like a profession, and like you're a professional, the way you get on and off equipment, the way you grab this, the way you lift, the
Yeah.
way you stack, the way you, like, there's all these little teeny things that you do that those of us that come from the industry, we kind of geek about it, and it's like a little science that you create as a result of doing the job, because your entire body is being impacted by it. Jordan, why don't you chime in on this? You look like you got something you want to say based on what I just provoked.
Bunch of things brewing in there. I want to circle back to productivity for a minute and how it relates to safety as a driver. I was taking my hat off because to show you gray hair. I'm not a youngster, right? And for me, I was probably one of the oldest guys in the warehouse doing driving, because loadout and the physicality of the job is pretty intense. And at my age, if I misstep, it costs more, physically. So I'll be honest, I kind of almost developed like an internal like yoga thing. It's like turn slowly, plant left foot, walk at a leisurely pace, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I got to the point where, I was very methodical about what I was doing. Now, a lot of the guys are just involved in making the numbers because they need to. And it becomes a point of pride. Like, I did 300 packages today. Oh, what'd you do? I did 350 and I had 210 stops, and it's like, hey, you're a superstar. Of course, you don't get paid more, but, that's a different story.
That's a different story, right?
Yeah, just an advertisement there for productivity is nice if you can measure it, but when it goes up, you're supposed to give some to the workers. Productivity creates extra money that comes in. Where's it go, fellas?
Right.
Okay.
Not to us.
Yeah, not to us. So, I mean, but your productivity has to go up, and they're measuring it. And if it doesn't go up, you get fired. And here's where I wanted to wrap it in. You got turnover. Incredible turnover with the drivers. I came in, and within 6 months, I'm like a veteran there, right? People are just leaving. Why? Because they're literally jumping out of the truck, running to places, twisting their ankles, falling on snow. And at some point, hey, you're 25 years old. You're like, I don't need this. This is crazy. And my dispatcher said I was running behind. As an older guy, I paced myself from the very start, and I'd encourage any drivers who are listening right now, pace yourself. Don't be a hero. Every driver can tell you. You start out first being told that, okay, for the first couple of days, you're going to be doing nursery routes. We'll give you 100 packages. Of course, you get to your truck, and they give you the route, and it's like 150 packages. That's your nursery route. Okay, so I got 150 packages. So you do 150, the next day it's 160, 3 days later it's 180. Now you're done with the nursery rounds, okay? So now you get worked a little bit harder. Now the 180 turns into 200 to 210. You do that for a month or two, and now it goes up to 250. And all the time the bar goes up, you're always expected to be able to do more. And that never really stops. That never, which is why there's incredible turnover. Because you can get to the point where you are a hero. You're a magnificent hero. You're doing 200 stops a day. You're doing 350 packages. And somebody's still going to be like, hey, you came in a little late. Hey, you got 3 customer complaints last week. Hey, you could do the other territory right over here. Let's put on a couple more stops and see how you do. The algorithms, as far as I can tell, and I've never heard anybody really argue with me the other way, any other driver. It's like they're designed to push you at 110 to 120% of your capacity, 110 to 120% of the time, right? You're not allowed to have a lull. You're not allowed to be human. And that to me is, the mathematical problem with developing routes like this is that, we're human beings, we all have a different pace we like to work at. Like for me, I like to bang it out of the box. First 3 hours, do it really fast, but then slow down. So for me, that works with their algorithms because I'm ahead of their pace in the first 3 or 4 hours. And then if I take it slow, then the pace catches up to me. But if you were the kind of person that needs to warm up and start out slow and do faster at the end of the day, guess what? Your dispatcher is chasing you for the first 3 or 4 hours because he doesn't understand that. And even if he does, the Amazon command chain tells him that he has to put pressure on you because you're 12 stops behind, even though you're going to make it up at the end of the day. Doesn't matter. At that 4th hour, you're 12 stops behind. You get that call. Hey, come on, get on the pace. What's going on? I don't want to.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, you're ahead of it the entire time, and as soon as you fall behind it a little bit, then that's when it happens. So I guess I got a question for both of you. What are you doing fighting back? Like, what's the let's talk about that. Obviously, you're organizing and you guys are doing demands, you're doing petitions, you're holding your employer accountable. Let's frame that out a little bit first. Robert?
Well, here at DCK6, we basically already unionized. We are in our court phase to get Amazon to the bargaining table. Our OC committee, I'm a member of. We meet every week, talk about what's going on, talk about other sites. We have the Teamsters right here, hand in hand. So we know what's going on down south. We know what's going on up north. We know what's going on in New York. We follow all of it because we're fighting for. We're the test case, basically, in San Francisco that everybody is followed. That needs to win in court. What we do at the warehouse is every day talk to the new employees, talk to the employees that didn't sign a union card the first time around. At stand up, we are vocal about what's going on. When they have said something at stand up that's union busting, they don't do it anymore because we throw a fit. And
yeah, that's what I want to talk about
doing.
Right there. I don't want to talk about waiting on court. I want to talk about this great work that you're doing where you guys are holding them accountable right there when it happens, right at the moment. Like talk about those scenarios where they're doing some union busting, you're calling them out, you're shutting it down, and then and then there's certain things you're changing in the operation because you're going to them and telling them you need to do A, B, and C. Let's talk about those things.
Well, a lot of the issues that we had with union busting was at the very beginning, and we shut that down right away. During stand-up, we would basically, every time they lied about a union thing, your money goes to unions and they waste it, they just keep it. Your pay is going to be less than what you're making right now, things like that. At stand-up, we would argue them down and shut them up, basically. Bring the fight to them. when they brought in new managers from other sites to try and cower us down, to make us obedient to what they wanted, we would fight. We would stand up and say, we're not going to accept this, and basically walk up to the managers and have a walk on the boss and tell them what we wanted and what we were going to do. We don't allow them to dictate what they want. When they would put up posters and signs, they don't allow us to put up posters and signs. Our only outlet was to go to the VOA Voice of Amazon board and post there. We don't allow them to individualize, in other words, a gang of managers on one person without us walking up and finding out what's going on. Why are 3 managers talking to this one person? And we go and we act like we are a unionized warehouse. We don't care that they haven't come to the bargaining table. We're unionized. We're there to protect the workers, make it safe, make it fair wages, and not allow them to roll over like they have been all the years that Amazon's been in business.
Right now, your
Terrible.
bargaining table is actively the shop floor making things happen.
Yeah.
It is great to hear these stories where you're taking control of the operation, you're taking control of the message, you're taking control of the narrative, and you're taking control of the issues that are happening in your operation. Jordan, I want to switch back over to you real quick and talk about a couple things here. You know, there's just been this general uprising, DBK1, DBK4, JFK. There's all this activity happening in the New York City area. And then also, I really want to talk about how inspirational it's got to be for you to see the Delivery Protection Act really start to rise up and see elected officials literally start to put policy to protect you. In other words, they saw your activity from last year. They saw all the things that you have been doing and organizing and saying, you know what, we're going to go out there and we're going to put some policy and some laws together at the city level, not depend on the federal government or anybody else. We're going to do it right here at the city level to protect workers just like you. How does that make you feel? Is that an inspiration to you? And then let's talk in general about how it is watching all these workers around you rise up all at the same time.
Well, I'll tell you, there is a lot going on in New York that it's easy to kind of get lost in it, and not understand, not see all the pieces coming together. But you know, I've gotten very involved in trying to be in communication with as many different places, different facilities in New York as are being organized. And there are quite a few. So once you start to get the knowledge that you're not alone, you know, in your facility, it's like, okay, maybe it's hard getting your organized committee going, getting the rank and file. I mean, it's always a tough uphill battle to get that group going, but you're not alone in New York. Everybody is fighting the same battle, and we're doing it at the same time. So at some point, there's going to be some concerted action that's going to put a real hurting on the New York City metro market. And that's something that Amazon will feel. And as far as the Delivery Protection Act goes, there's a lot of, the first time I saw the involvement of the political arena and the legislators was at the strike that we did back in December last year, which was awesome. We had all these speakers coming out. We had AOC walking the line with us. We had, I don't remember all their names. I think Mom Donnie even came down and participated.
He did. Yes.
So we had everybody making noise on our behalf, getting in front of the loudspeaker with the Bezos pig rat sitting in the background, inspiring everybody. And it's good for the politicians too, because they need to be associated with worker power. I mean, we are the people, and they know that. We are their constituents, and that's really important. So they like to have the voice. And the fact that Tiffany Caban put together, you know, with her committee, this amazing Delivery Protection Act that when it passes is going to put the screws on Amazon's ability to say, we're not responsible for the drivers. No, we don't employ the drivers. BS. And it is an inspiration. And we got out. All the people from all the different facilities, all us Amazon Teamsters and anybody in the rank and file came out. We supported the politicians when they went to the City Hall. You know, we stood outside. We actually, you know, shook hands with legislators, council people who had not gotten on board yet or had, and we were just glad handing them and saying, thank you so much. So we're working hand in hand with the political process, which, when it succeeds, will be, a formidable thing to see.
Yeah, it's a good example of you driving the direction of what is necessary for workers and elected officials following suit, and making sure that they see what you're doing first and foremost, and then they stepped into the arena and says, okay, we got to pass something to protect these people because this exploitive business model that Amazon has is very destructive for our community and the workers there. So let's put something in play that's going to protect them. And that's what's inspirational to me, is seeing where the community, the workers, and the industry all come together and something positive happens because these elected officials are like taking notice, walked your line, and then went out and set the policy. That's incredible. Robert, what you got to say about this?
We did the same thing. We passed, we went to Sacramento 3 or 4 times to pass AB 288, which is the bill that Gavin Newsom signed into law this last year. And we were very involved in that. We put it out there to really push the council members of city council and the governor to pass a law. We went and talked to Congress in California, the state Congress, and doing that allows us to be making, like you said, what we need to dictate to Amazon, not what they dictate to us. Also, we just received an award for MLK Day for our work in with the Teamsters. It was really good. Nancy Pelosi spoke. We had our representatives there, Jacob and Janae. They actively pursue, and we actively pursue, dealing with politicians here. And it works for us in the sense of it gives us someone to back us up against Amazon. Amazon is not some little McDonald's that you're able to, try and throw a lawsuit at and win. Amazon is a company that is a conglomerate that we can't fight alone. We need our politicians to represent us, and we need to pass laws against Amazon, and that's always important to us.
Yeah, hearing hearing what you just said reminds me of how workers are taking charge, and then elected officials are coming out and saying, okay, now let's do these things to protect these very workers that are getting out and making it happen. You're leading the charge. And I just want you to know, like, you're an inspiration to millions of workers out there. I know we started this conversation on AI. It shifted over to action and activity. Whether you're battling AI or you're battling things are happening in your operation, or you're trying to establish the Delivery Protection Act or make sure AB 288 gets signed. The great thing is Amazon workers are at the center of every bit of this. It is incredibly inspirational to always see these things kind of ratchet up, and then the elected officials come in and try to deliver with making sure that the proper policy at whatever level of government needs to be applied. What would be your message to other Amazon workers in relation to all that? Because look, just briefly, this is powerful work. To see the people that you refer to, Mamdani, AOC, Pelosi, you've got so many elected officials that have a national sort of stage and the ability to captivate millions of people and listen to them, literally showing up to your events, literally putting laws into place to protect you. Man, this got to be an inspiration. And what's your message to other Amazon workers to level this up? I'll start with you, Jordan.
Message is simple. Let's level it up together. Let's keep going. Let's do more of this. Amazon, this is, I said this a year ago. I don't know who remembers the Thriller in Manila. This is the thrill. This is the fight of the century. This is the labor movement rising is what it is. This
sure
is
is.
Amazon against the NLRB, Amazon, against us, the workers, fighting for what we believe in, fighting for the workers to rise again, because we have gotten the short end of the stick. I mean, fighting oligarchy is one way to put it. Another way to put it is build worker power, right? Because, yeah, you can knock the big boys down. That's important. But what's even more important is build us up. That productivity we were talking about before, my fair-friended drivers out there. You do 400 packages a day. How come you're not getting a $200 bonus at the end of the day? Why not? They made $5,000 on you, okay? All right, your productivity went up. How come your paycheck didn't go up? That's what I'm saying. Those have to be linked. They used to be linked. We used to care about workers a lot more. And getting Amazon on board to win this fight is a very visible thing, because everybody loves Amazon. Bring the thing to my door. Oh my God, convenience. Amazon, Bezos is a genius. Well, time for him to treat his workers right.
Yeah, turnover.
Example.
I think your point earlier about turnover is a great example. Any big company or any operation that's got turnover like you're explaining and workers know means that there's a problem in the workplace. In other words, they're not providing what they need. Robert, to close, what's your message to Amazon workers? This got to be an inspiration to you to be at the center of these types of things. Obviously, see it happening all over the place on top of it. But, what's your message to other Amazon workers for them to level it up to?
My message would be to go out and speak to the workers that aren't involved. Talk to the people that you don't think would be involved in something like this and see if they will, because a lot of people are just on the sidelines waiting to see what happens. Some of them we can make be on the field. We don't have to wait for them to see what happens. We can drag them on the field to fight with us, to continue what we're doing here as workers. Like Jordan said, one of the things that Amazon is an oligarchy. We can knock that oligarchy down with worker power. Fight the powers that be. NWA. That's what I think we need to be doing every day. So my message is talk to everybody, speak to everybody, stand up to management, and fight every day.
You're right. Workers have control. Workers have the power. They have worker power. And when they exercise it, they win. It's that simple. I know there's a lot that goes into it. I'm not minimizing the work, but I'm just saying workers already occupy all those jobs. They are in the space to control it. It's just a matter of them exercising it. What a great show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank
Robert,
you.
Jordan, really appreciate you sharing your view on AI, how it impacts the job, as well as the activities and actions that are going on, and the integration and inspiration that you have with the elected officials and seeing how they're wrapping themselves around the workforce, trying to make sure it's better, because clearly Amazon's not doing it on their own as much as they claim that they are. And you know what? I agree with you. The workers have the power. It's time to shut it down.
That's right. Shut it down.
When we fight, we win.
We win.
Let's start the strike. Corporate greed is disgusting. Instead of us, they rather pay for union busting. Somebody said the working man a sucker. They took the stand and ran like a high jumper. Teams is local 804, we not having that. We gon' stand here and fight for fair contract. Fair wages on the table,